right, hello.
Hello?
Oh, hey, it's working.
Holy crap!
We did it.
We
Did
can
it,
speak
boys.
to each other.
We did it, boys and grills.
Oh wow, this is weird, isn't it? How we doing? No,
It
please
is.
stay away from the lie, innit, lads?
Yeah. So was there anything specific like you want to talk about like last night or anything?
Oh no, maybe the NHS.
Maybe what? Wait, chess?
NHS. No, I'm only kidding. Nah, it were a bit weird yesterday. I
It
honestly
was.
thought Dylan came off like not just cringe, but almost in extremely bad taste.
Yeah. And that's where like I didn't want to like I don't know. I didn't want to agree like with everything that he was saying because I don't agree with like singing happy birthday to the CCP or celebrating like China's government, but
Well,
you're right. He
at
could
the
have
end of the
made
day, mate, you're celebrating a government that's indulging in industrialized genocide, aren't you?
Yeah, he
And
could have
when
picked a
Dylan
better
harps
country.
on about like I'm not going to say virtue signaling, but he talks about this stuff in foreign policy, and he goes
Yeah.
on about Yemen and what's going on in Israel and that lot. Industrialized genocide is the existential threat that was an actual threat that banded together the Brits and the Americans and the Allied forces. I mean, this is the thing
Right,
that
fine,
was
we'll posture
actually
check.
the greatest
I
threat
know
to
I'm
us as a free
slouching.
world. So it seems incredibly ignorant for him to make that choice and to trivialize that issue for the sake of a meme, if you get what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I get the point that he was trying to make, but like, he probably could. You're right. He probably could have picked a better. He could have picked a different country and made the same point. It's like, I don't know, man. It just made it that much easier for everybody on the right on the panel to just read and be like, well, China sucks, so why would you ever do that? Like, and basically pearl clutch and be like, how could you, you know?
But it also undermined his credibility to be making his positions and his arguments, if you ask me. And he did that right out of the gate. Do you know what I mean? And even as a left winger myself, I found that very off-putting about him. And I'm usually quite agreeable with a lot of Dylan's, policies and positions. Quite frankly.
Yeah, I like Dylan. I don't usually have too much issue with a lot of the stuff, a lot of his takes, regardless. Minus the fact that like he's on the left and I'm on the right. We might have differences in opinion on. Excuse me, how we would like solve some of these problems, but at least the way that he frames a lot of the issues that he thinks that we have in America, I agree most like probably like 90% of the time with the way he frames the issues that we have.
Yeah, it just seemed very out of character for him as well. No, not really.
Yeah,
seen him go to that length for something before.
Dang.
But other than that, no, I think. Go on.
No, I'm just thinking out loud. I was saying I did want to try to talk to Mindwaves.
Oh yeah, go for it, man.
No, he's not like on. I'm just saying like it was just a thought. I was just like I said, I'm just thinking out loud. Something that crossed.
Oh, when he jumps on, man, then dive onto
weird viewer flex too. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know though, man. That was one thing that I don't really feel like. I don't know, man. I don't feel like it really bothers me too much to some degree. I don't think I wouldn't have done it the way he did it because it's like Danabo's panel or whatever.
Well, I guess you're kind of used to Twitch culture in that respect, aren't you? You know what I mean? You're kind of used to the memes and everything like that. Yeah. To me, kind of the layman seeing that, I was like, oh, really? Shit.
Yeah.
Like.
It's just like, well, I have the most viewers, so I'm just gonna mute and talk to my chat because nobody wants to let me finish my fucking point. I feel like there was something that he was saying that I like. Oh yeah, because I was trying to push back on some of like what he said, but the fact that I was trying to wait for him to finish too, so it was kind of annoying that everybody cut him off because then it gave him an excuse to just be like, yeah, all right, well, fuck you guys.
It turned into a bit of a clusterfuck, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was.
You know. So
I don't know. I feel like
I think
it was fun though.
No, it was, man. Like, I enjoy watching chaos, to be honest, man. It's like it's my fix that I get for not being in the kitchen at the moment. Well, you know as well as I do. There's always drama in a bloody kitchen. Oh.
Yeah, Swamp. It is what it is. You say, how's it going? It's going, man.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit tipsy from last night. I drank a lot, so I guess you probably didn't hang around after the panel too long.
After you took a couple of flipping like haymakers off of him on your like tried and tested like wall versus mask analogy, which I thought was absolutely fantastic.
That was the worst. That was the worst. That was the worst framing I had, because when I was getting ready to say it, right, I had like the bow on top, and I had the whole package thought out, and then once I got the chance to speak, that's what sucks about some of these panels. Like everything that I had just like left me, and so like I was supposed to be like making a zinger, and then I had to like slow down what I was saying and be like, well, you know, and I had to, because I was like, fuck, it'll come back to me, and then it didn't come back to me. So, but I have used that argument to not only turn like lefties towards like being pro wall, but also to turn like right people to using masks. So.
Oh no! Like when you
that was like
I got reeled, mate. I generally did get a bit reeled.
Hey,
I was like, fuck, I need to scramble for some symbol of logic to fucking undermine this bastard.
I thought that was a pretty good one.
I thought it was a reasonable good one. You know what I mean? Because like so watching him come out the gates at you was quite fun. But then to be fair, Sprout's eagerness kind of saved you from that a little bit, because he just like dived right in there. Every single like right winger on that panel was like trying to dive on this heme grenade. You know what I mean? It's like come at you. So I was just so impressed, because for the first time ever I saw him getting a little frustrated and getting a little aggressive, because he's
usually pretty chill.
Does he get aggressive at all? Yeah. He even got underneath CTV's skin a little bit, and that's a hell of a task to do with CTV. He's got steel thick skin, to be honest. That guy.
I don't know. So, I did it after the panel.
Did you?
Yeah, we were fucking. I kept drinking and we were just hanging out.
Just shit talking him.
Yeah, a little bit, and then I don't know. I was being asked questions, and then it was like, I was just like fucking a no filter. I was like, all right, well, fucking explain to me like where, like, point something out, and then it was like, oh, well, stop debate broing, dude. And I'm like, all right, well, fucking 6 of you just dogpiled me with a bunch of fucking questions, and then when I try to answer one, I get cut off, and then it's like, hey, calm down, my dude. I'm like, all right, come on, man, stop fucking gaslighting me. What's up, gringo?
So I've been noticing you've been grinding at Raid Shadow Legends like an absolute sellout. That's it, lad. Yeah, you get your money.
Look, I legitimately, I took the like sponsorship thing through Stream Elements, and I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. Like once like just for the sponsorship, right? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna play like the tutorial, and I'm gonna do, because you're supposed to do like a 2-hour stream at least one time, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna do it. But then once I started playing it, I was like, it's actually, like, I have it pulled up right now. I was like, it's actually pretty chill, okay? Like, regardless of the sponsorship, like, once I started playing it.
Isn't it loot boxes and, like, what's it we call it? Like,
it's just a little grindy, like, mobile kind of game. Like, I don't even really, kind of loot boxy. It's got all the little, like, microtransactions and stuff.
So. Don't you? You know what I mean? So, like, it's when you get charged like 60 quid for a game from bloody EA, and then you try to charge you flipping money for loot boxes. That's what gets on my nerves.
Yeah. But it is, I don't know. It is actually pretty chill, especially if I'm just sitting on a panel. I can just like pull it up and grind it. So.
Yeah, fair enough. It's better than bloody Pokemon, put it that way.
Well, if you're talking about like Pokemon Go, then yeah. If you're talking about like old school Pokemon, then of course not. Talking about Game Boy Pokemon, okay? I'm not talking about the new shit.
Form of JRPG denominator is Pokemon. Like,
come on,
you couldn't get more basic. Like, seriously.
Come on, what's wrong with Pokemon though?
Okay, I just had a personal grudge. I got my ass beat in fucking primary school because everyone assumed I watched Pokemon because I watch anime cartoons. Yeah, so it's just pure contempt towards the brand. Even though it's successful, it's hugely successful. I mean, like, it's the biggest thing that's ever stuck since Pogs and Tamagotchis. You know what I mean? In that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got to acknowledge it. But you know, what's happened?
What's that?
I just saw the screen change. I've turned the volume right down to mute on the tablet, so I've just got you on there, you know, while I'm on the phone.
Yeah. I had to pull up my other screen.
Mrs. Nacho, is Is she doing all right?
Yeah, she's good. She's with her friend. They had like a barbecue today, and she was like,
"Oh, fair enough.
You don't have to come if you don't want to." And I was like, she said that like yesterday, so I went ahead and took my, like, yeah, okay, all right. I had already thought, I was like, all right, good, I'm not going. I like the people but it's just want to relax.
Yeah. After your big fight yesterday, you lick your wounds a little bit and dust yourself off, get ready for the next one.
It wasn't even that necessarily. I was just like, even before that, I was just like, I don't want to go anywhere this weekend. Like, it's 4th of July weekend. I want to spend the weekend like at home.
Well, what do you usually do? Do you usually have like a massive celebration or like big events on stuff like on the 4th of July?
I don't usually have like too big of a celebration, but it'll just depend. Like, I might go to somebody else's place.
Public events, like we have.
Oh yeah, they have them all over the place.
To be honest, nothing like the 4th of July because we're celebrating somebody who failed at blowing up Parliament and got hung, drawn, and quartered. But like 4th of July, man, do you have like big events at the parks and that lot, like fireworks?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's always like usually at every like in every major. Come to my house, you'll be safe. Yeah. If there's like a local park or something like that, there's like usually every town, even every small town, definitely like in the bigger cities, there's like a city parade, and then there's like they'll set up booths, and I'm sure they're doing it in most of the states that are open right now. Probably a lot of the like Republican states. They're all doing their 4th of July festivals, so they'll have fucking funnel cakes and they'll have barbecue and whatever else. They'll make a whole day of it. So,
like, something about America that I always kind of like envious of. Like, you guys know how to do production value, yeah. Like your proms, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
serious setup. So then you've got like the British high school disco. You know what I mean? That's just sort of like a couple of chairs. A random DJ hired from the local town, and a few cocktails, sausages on the end of a stick.
Well, it depends on your school too. Like if you're at a smaller school, you'll probably, you'll probably not have as big of a one. It'll probably be just what you talked about, but it just depends. But yeah, most of the time we know how to party.
Yeah.
We know how to sell an event. Got to sell everything in this.
Quite fascinating.
The leader of capitalism, right?
Our
city is saving.
I'm a dirty communist, aren't I? Just for like, what I feels like mildly left-wing policies over here. But like, holy crap, I get some heat. I do in the chat rooms.
Yeah, I know. I like it. It makes me happy though. It's kind of funny to see. It's funny to me, especially like when I'm having a conversation with like CTV or like I'm in their like midday stream. Or like on Halo night or whatever, and I see you like hopping back and forth between the chats, like just stirring the fucking pot, and I'm just like, Jesus, man.
I've been in this on and off lockdown shit like for so fucking long that I'm just trying to keep my shit talking sharp,
Yeah.
And CTV, to be fair to him, even though I disagree with a lot of his positions, he is a geezer. You know what I mean? You can actually have a good, back and forth with him. He don't take it too personally, and he's always up for a bit of banter and a good laugh. As long as it's funny,
yeah,
I'll laugh with it. Do you get what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I always look for some people to throw a few jabs back. Do you know what I mean? But you've got to be funny. Like,
yeah,
I'm expecting some like,
Yeah, that's my thing. Like
first division football.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like it's gotta be good, man. I love my American nacho. Nice, thanks. Holy shit, you hear about the folks in Boston? Oh, or Mylan, are you talking about the Nashi's accent? Definitely thick, right?
Like from Boston?
No, I think he's just saying like, I think they're just saying that like, people complain because in America people complain about like people with an accent from Boston, like that it's like really thick. I think that's what they're saying.
Well, I don't really sound like what like most of you Yanks tend to say, which is like, oh, what is it? Jolly good show, stiff up my lip, and all that lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're very, very commonly from the north, aren't we? So, yeah. To be fair, we have a bit of this is quite a common accent, if you know what.
Yeah, I don't know all the different like dialects. You know what I mean? I know that there's a lot of different ones, and like when I hear them, I can tell that like, oh, this is that thing, but I don't know the name for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Well,
Like, does that make sense? Like, you could probably tell different Americans.
Sure.
You can tell like, oh, this person must be, you know, from the same area as this other person, but you don't really know like what the area is. That's how I feel.
You see, I'm starting to pick up on like, you know, what is it? I can definitely tell people that are from like the Minnesota area. Do you know what I mean? And not like, you know, so. But then, to be honest,
Minnesota,
like, it's like a really, yeah, exactly, yeah. But if it's like, say, if it's not like a really distinctive southern cliched thing, like I can't really make the distinction.
Raining a lot and running around naked, nice.
Which is probably quite funny, to be honest, because a lot of Americans, due to popularity in TV, that probably Guy Ritchie, they speak the Cockney. You know what I mean? The Southern Londoner thing.
Yeah, Cockney. Yeah.
And so, you couldn't come up with a more insulting accent to me, like, because they're Southern fairies and the damn royalists. Like, we're from the north, we fought them. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, it's quite funny that the default accent that Americans tend to go for and use is probably the one that would trigger me the most.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, no. Like, we're just a small island at the end of the day, mate. I think someone said we're like the size of Florida or California, one of the two.
Yeah, I think Mylan's right. It's because Cockney, people in America think that Cockney sounds cool. That and an Australian accent. Like, dude, I blame all of Kyo-san's wins on his Australian accent. I feel like if he made the same arguments without the Aussie accent, I don't feel like he would do as well.
Here's the thing about the Aussies. They're like us, but like, they've got actual optimism, idealism, and they're friendly as fuck. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Like,
well, so, they started from nothing too, to some degree. I mean, like, that was literally a prison, or it was meant to be. They just literally a lot of the European countries would just bring people to Australia and drop them off and be like, see you later.
Oh yeah, like, well, we did a hell of a number historically. Do you know what I mean? Like, a hell of a number historically on the world, man. We are history's villains for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We took in World War II to turn us baby faces for about 4 or 5 years. You know, so
who do you think had like a stronger impact, or more of a widespread like impact? Do you think that Great Britain did, or that like America currently? I guess.
I think we just got there first.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely I mean, I'm not particularly well versed in this like area of stuff, but I think it was definitely a kind of a naval arms race, wasn't it like Spain, was it France?
Yeah, Spain and France, and Great Britain.
And I've often tried to argue from a philosophical perspective, if that technological advancement happened in that period of time, you know, that civilization in a different part of the world, would they be just as oppressive? You know what I mean? I like to point out just how xenophobic Japan used to be, or still is to a certain degree now, if you get what I mean. Like, if you had if you had like red hair or blue eyes, like, you were murdered on sight over in Japan during, you know, those eras that we know, like, just before the Meiji era and that lot.
Nice,
so really,
I hope you make it back.
We were a pretty brutal species in that time. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
like, I think we just got there first, you know, and we took advantage of that. But we have always been this trampled on island, if you know what I mean. Like the French, the Vikings, the Romans.
But for a while,
they all conquered us. You know, every single time on the way to a different flipping land, they just stepped on us. You know, on the way we were like a stepping stone. You know what I mean? So we've had this history of being conquered and oppressed ourselves. But like, you're going way back then, if you get what I mean. Yeah, but
if you go, UK has also been like, they've also had a big. You know, at one point they had, wasn't it the UK that owned Hong Kong and some of the other, like, basically controlled China for a long period of time, and India?
I understand, we forced the Chinese to sell heroin to its people. I think that was the Boxer Rebellion, if I remember rightly. You know, don't treat that as gospel. Then we sold tea off them and sold it to you lot at a marked up price. Which, by the way, when you throw the tea in the water, just went straight over our heads, mate. And you know, it was a big moment for you. We'd already got our money anyway.
Right, yeah, that's a funny... I think that is such a funny thing about that, right? Like, you're not dumping the tea that's like on its way, or like sinking the ship that's like... You bought the tea and then you put it on the ground, like... it's kind of funny. It's the same kind of thing as like, you know, if some like if like some Antifa nerd wants to go like buy an American flag and then burn it, like, well, you still paid for the flag, like capitalism.
Right, innit? Like, yeah, you still got exactly. Like, I just find it. I like to try to find the twisted humor inside of our dark history. To be honest, it helps with the cope, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but you guys had India, you guys had Hong Kong and large swaths of China,
the world, mate. Yeah,
and Africa.
In the world, I'm like, you see this whole big thing about America.
It rained yesterday where I'm at.
Being racist or having a racist problem, being connected to slavery and that lot. Like, if you really look into it, wasn't it us who basically globalized the slave trade? With the East India training companies. We're the ones who were selling these people. Like, if you go to some of our towns, historically, they were some of the largest slave hubs in the entire world.
Well, that's where I always like to meme.
Get more neck deep in this. Do you get what I mean? We couldn't get more neck deep in this, like, you know, dirty underbelly of, you know, of history's, like, you know, more unethical era, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's what always cracks me up. I always point that out to especially people that are in foreign countries, especially European countries and like Canada and stuff, that want to like shit talk America and be like, aren't you, you know, you guys are racist and you guys are dealing with all these, and I'm like, wait, but don't you live in essentially an ethno state, right? I mean, like, so many countries in Europe are like 90% white. Like, it's much worse in a lot of European countries and in Canada than it is in America. So that's what's funny to me is that
diverse culture over here.
Yeah, you got a diverse culture, but I'm saying that it's still, the population is still like 97% white. I think the last time that I checked, for at least for like UK and
I'll have to check that, but I'm not sure. Because I live in a town where there's quite a large Asian community as well. You know, like.
Well, it depends, maybe if they consider that or not, but.
Well, I guess my mum was very, very liberal, so I was really never had that kind of like hyper awareness of these kind of cultural things until I got older, you know, sort of in college and stuff.
Yeah.
So, how do I put it? Like, we do have racists. I mean, I'm not trying to say like we're some bloody utopia. Of course we do, but how do I explain it? I find that we're just a lot less. What's the word? Easily triggered or sensitive at the moment. Does that make sense? When it comes to politics and political issues, like I'm discussing with a conservative. Like, I've got conservative friends, and I have some conservative views myself. I'm a left-wing friends. You don't hear this coming out of me a lot. I'm not always going, well, it's just the right wing that does this all the time, and they're trying to destroy our society. That's like probably one of the most self-destructive and, quite frankly, like bitchy and like fragile fucking mindsets to take. Do you know what I mean? Because to me, that is just establishment rhetoric being echoed through an individual, and that individual isn't actually expressing their personal way of thinking about an issue. Do you know what I mean? So
yes, that's what bothers me about so much of this partisan shit.
Yeah, I did see a lot of that during the Brexit period. That was extremely frustrating. Do you know what I mean? When people kind of lose their own independence of thought and just start echoing, you know, the words of some fucking demagogue. Do you know what I mean? That frustrates me.
That's what that stuff bothers me. Just just generally for people who are like super partisan, like one way or the other. Like you can't be so willing to. This is what I got mad at the left for, like leading up to the election. Now, I realize, like, looking back on it, that Trump was kind of an idiot, and, like, I didn't really... going back, like, he did kind of fail on... But there was it was like... I don't know how to explain it. It was like they just wore it out, right? And it seemed like they were willing to ignore everything that was happening on the Democratic side just to keep pointing the finger at Trump. And I'm like, well, can we even talk about any of these things? Like, no, you're not even allowed to talk about anything. The only thing you're allowed to talk about is how shitty Trump is, and that's it. And I was kind of like, you know what? Fuck that. I can't sign on to and people that it seems like are just operating purely off of an ideology like that.
Well, ideologue is probably the term we're looking at. You know what I mean? Like, you can throw anything at them and they'll regurgitate whatever flipping, you know, it's like talking to a robot. You know what I mean? It's like clones. People just bloody repeat the same talking point. And, talking points are supposed to elicit some kind of dialogue, when actually oddly enough, talking points can kind of shut down any hope for, like, positive dialogue, because it just narrows the conversation down one dialogue tree, if you get what I'm saying, and everybody just ends up in a conflict anyway over these issues, when quite frankly, to be honest, when it comes to the left, in my experience on left chat rooms as well, like, I've been scolded for fat shaming myself, which I thought is kind of taking it to the extreme. Do you know what I mean? When I say, oh God, I got to sort myself out, I'm getting a bit of a gut. They're like, oh, no, you can't do that. That's fat shaming. It's like, it's me.
Yeah.
It's myself.
Yeah, that's
so,
what's...
like...
That's weird to me about all this.
Ideals become toxic. I think it becomes toxic there when you've got kind of like a rule book, and like you're screaming at somebody for like breaking the rule even technically slightly. Do you know what I mean? Like, some people can just be unaware.
True.
And you're the self-ordained ignorance that comes from that kind of ideologue's mind or fundamentalist mindset can just prevent a person from being able to interact with you, in the first place. It just creates a rift in the first place. So yeah, I see. I don't know. I get concerned for you guys. You're like a knuckle-headed younger brother. You know what I mean? With a hell of a lot more potential. Nationally, we have an interest. We have a very fascinating geopolitical relationship, and as far as we're concerned, like I think Brits are misinterpreted, because I think we criticise a lot out of, I guess you would probably say, tough love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to see you go down those same routes. So when it came to Trump,
we're allies at the end of the day. So it's like,
well, yeah, I mean, you saved our asses, when it came to World War II. Long before you even got involved in that, you were giving us food and resources under the table. And if you think about that, that was a humbling experience from the country that you fought against for your independence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For you to be willing to do that after this is, quite frankly, a country that oppressed you. That was kind of, I think, a sobering experience for us, historically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've always had an interesting relationship with America,
Yeah. Well, and that's that kind of ties into like what you were talking about earlier. Kind of ties into what the conversation was about last night. Like I think so many people want to be outraged at absolutely everything right now. And basically everybody's walking on eggshells. Anybody who's online, hell, half the shit that I've already said online, I'm sure at some point in the future, some of the words I said are going to be like, something I said is going to be ableist or this or some ist or some ism or something like that. So, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't... And I'm someone who watches a lot of what they say. Like, I do my best to not cross any of those lines, even if I don't think that it's that... Like, I don't necessarily take it that serious, and I don't really think that it's that, like, important necessarily, like, rhetorically. I guess when you have a larger audience, that part does get important. But as far as, like, just in everyday life, if someone at the gas station is just, like, cussing out the gas pump or something, like, I don't know... it's like, are we gonna have people like thought police and be policing each other? Like, hey, you know what I mean?
Okay, so I guess the good example of it is that I like to banter, don't I? I do a lot of shit talk at the end of the day. I give as good as I get. And I was giving CTV a lot of stick, for his aviators, and his eyes that look like they've came out of a mine after not seeing
who timed out who
in years. And like as soon as CTV had expressed that he wears his aviators for a reason, he's had experiences, so he can and it was clearly a personal issue for him. And he didn't even say that directly to me, as if he was reacting to some of the jokes that I'd said. Like, I just immediately cut that from my banter material. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if it's clearly affecting a person on a personal level, there's just a level of decency. But the majority of the time, you don't know that unless a person expresses that. Do you know what I mean? And the first experience that you have from that expression is somebody raging at you for being worse than scum, then it's going to create a rift in the first place, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like not to Nazi, in a second. It's just so frustrating to see. And I see that a lot on the left. You know what I mean? I do see that a lot on the left. People are so quick to condemn people to be the worst piece of shit on the face of the planet. And like, how do you expect someone to behave if you're doing that to them?
Yeah.
So it's apples. It's tit for tat. It's apples and oranges. You know what I mean?
Like that's what I was talking about. It ties into like what we were like talking about patriotism and stuff last night, because there's so many people that are just like, oh, how could you like be pro America? Like, how could you love how could you say you love this country or whatever? Look at all the like crazy shit we've done.
Suggest those people haven't lived under the Chinese flipping regime.
Exactly. I think that's the kind of like this what we're having, like going through like all these like isms and
finding see what happens to you.
Yeah, and finding the next like offensive thing. These are the luxuries of being, you know, a first world country, right? Yes. We have solved so many of our problems, even though we still have problems to solve. But we have solved so many of our major problems that now we can just sit around and shit talk on the internet about how terrible our country's past was, or about how oppressed this group is or that group is, or like that yourself, that you as an individual are. And it's not like I would never say that you're not allowed to say that, because it's America and you have free speech to do so. But some of these people, it seems like they don't fully grasp just how good we have it here, right? So it's like you can criticize all you want, you can say all this, you should talk all you want, but you can't, like, saying that you're not proud of America or that you shouldn't be proud of America is just kind of dumb to me, you know?
Well, how to put it? Like, so there's this guy that I watch on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him. One's a South African fellow, the white guy, and the other one, I think, he's an American fella. And they were doing videos over in China, and he lived in China. They both have Chinese spouses, not like, you know, they're expats. And he literally could see the change, you know, in the CCP and in the government. And he's got some very fascinating videos. I'll send you a link in Whisper at some point, because he's a really great example of what you were just talking about. And big uns and little uns, he's basically, you know, come out of China, escaped from China, if you get what I mean, and managed to get back to America. His wife's managed to get a flipping, you know, a visa or a green card and that lot, and come over and live there. And he's expressing exactly what you're saying. Like, he never truly appreciated America as a country until he had to flee back there. And he understands just how vital those freedoms are that they actually have. And like I said, you can make it's your patriotic privilege to be able to shit talk any leader that you have, including the one that you voted for. But like,
wait, hold on. Somebody's sending me breaking news. Apparently, hold on. This is apparently it was like some standoff in. There was a standoff in Boston.
Servicemen and women.
With like militia against police.
Hold on. They're allowing the media to portray
hold on, I'm trying to.
As anti-government, after I expressed to you multiple times when I'm anti-government.
That is one thing that I think will always be alien between the two of us.
I'm just informing you.
Like the gun culture.
We're not going to escalate anything any further. You know, we're not going to. We're going to continue to not point our arms at you, because that's not what we're here for. That's not what we plan to do today. We're not going to threaten you guys. We're not going to coerce you guys. We're not going to make you guys feel threatened in any type of way. We're not.
Oh, this is from the militia side.
Do any shady movements or anything like that to make you guys feel threatened. We're not going to do anything like that. So at most, what's going to happen is we're going to get so fatigued to the point where it's easier for you to violate us, because we're going to be so weak from not eating and drinking that you're just going to be able to arrest us. That's really what's going to happen. And you're probably going to have to bring me out on a stretcher. So please have paramedics ready, because I'm already fatigued.
Oh wait, hold on. Why is this still?
Give me a second.
That was from the memes last night. All right, hold on. Sorry.
He was just arrested on camera. Him.
This is a conversation, I guess, between
I expressed to you multiple times when I'm anti-government.
One of the leaders of this thing.
Violating my trust with you guys. So I'm just informing you, we're not going to escalate anything any further. We're not going to. We're going to continue to not point our arms at you, because that's not or anything like that to happen.
So what's going on? Is it like a
I don't know.
Militia or something?
Armed standoff near Boston resulted in 9 members of a militia group called Rise of the Moors getting arrested.
Rise of the Moors.
He was just arrested on camera?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm ensuring.
It was Rise of the Moors.
Have a few Moors helping us, notifying their chain of command of what's going on. We're still here. We're still safe. The lieutenant has informed us that they're going to move some of their vehicles, and they're doing that now. It's cold out here, so I'm shivering. That's why I sound like this. We've been out here since about 2 a.m. It's about 4 a.m. It's so we've been out here since 1:53 a.m. It is July 3rd,
Nice.
2021. We are in North America, Morocco. We are on the Interstate 95 near exit 57.4. The mile marker is right near this police vehicle, which they're going to be moving it soon, and I'll be able to walk up. So
I'm going to steal that.
In fact, I'll just show you for the record.
That's a good word.
We already assured them that we're going to be peaceful.
You're angry because you got no biscuits.
So nothing to worry about. But the mile marker was right here. So that resolution, I reassured them that I'm not anti-police. I reassured them that we are not anti-government. I reassured them that these men here will not be pointing guns at them. I reassured them that we're trying to come to a peaceful resolution. I reassured them that I'm willing to give them any information that is necessary to ensure that we can come to a peaceful resolution, so that way they can issue a summons to us in court and handle this civilized. I've also specified how, according to the United States Supreme Court, Younger versus the state of Hawaii, the United States Supreme Court stated how the possession of a firearm is not a crime. It constitutes no offense, which means they have no right or authority to detain us. I also specified how, according to the United States federal law, we have the right to peaceful journey. So, with that being said, we should not have been detained here. We were not pulled over. We had stopped to fuel a vehicle. I'm going to show you for the record. I also have a body cam. It's still recording. My body cam is right here. The red light indicates that it's recording. Our vehicle is full of camping equipment, which supports what I said about how we're going to our private land to train, which is our Second Amendment right. I also specified how, according to the federal laws of the United States, peaceful journey, we have the right to travel as long as we're not making any unnecessary stops. I assured the police that we prepared for this because we prepared to abide by federal law, the federal laws of the United States, including the treaty laws of the United States. So I assured them that we had planned to fill up these fuel tanks, which I'm about to show you right now, so that way we don't have to make any unnecessary stops, so that way we could have just passed through their state. They specified how they were trying to protect public security, public peace, and I specified how we were just traveling through. We weren't going to stop, and we weren't going to stop at any gas stations because that could have a
Academia.
Huh?
The main heroes, My Hero Academia.
I'm just trying to figure out what even happened here. Like, what was the point of this?
The public, which is why we have the gas tanks right here and right here.
So I guess they were traveling.
So that way we can avoid having to stop at gas stations. So that way we don't alert the public, and there's no need for them to be here. But they're the reason why we're still here. We've been asking to go on our peaceful journey. Yeah. Yes, I do. I'm live right now. All right. All right. Can you hold this and just point at them? Yep.
I don't know if this is... Yeah, the headline made it sound way cooler than it was. This just seems like these guys were traveling on their way to...
Everyone out there who committed no crimes, had no probable cause to stop us in the first place. And right now, here we are.
Like, they were on their way... It seems like they were on their way to go wherever they were... Like, he said they were on their way to their private property to go train. And they had gas, they had guns and ammunition and all this other stuff. But then they had pulled over to the side of the road to do something. And I guess then the cops wanted to pull up and try to, like... talk to them or try to like detain them, and they basically told the cops to fuck off because they were like, you had no right to
can't take our weapons.
Well, it's if it's the way that this person framed it, they're absolutely right. Like, the cops can't just, if I'm sitting in my car on the side of the road, like the cops can't just come up and turn the blue lights on and then be like, oh, by the way, you're detained and you can't leave. Like, no, you need to have a probable cause, and you need to have something to like. You need to tell me like what crime I've committed in order to like detain someone there. We have constitutional rights.
Well, here's like again, like another distinct alien thing between our cultures is your police culture and our police culture. If you get what I mean. Like, if you walk out into the street, you're not going to see a police officer unless they're a special guns unit that usually keep themselves to themselves. You're not going to see a police officer with a firearm, if you're saying what I mean. So. Immediately, that threat of escalation isn't there. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they were just well, from their word, like from what they've said. I don't know what's true or what's not, but what they've said, it seems like they were just transporting this stuff, like this equipment, from one place to another, I guess.
Well, no one was arrested, were they?
AmericanNacho.
I don't know.
Charged with anything.
It looks like 11 people were arrested.
Yours, yeah? Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
All right. We are on Interstate 95, Massachusetts, near exit 57, mile marker 57.4. They specified in the news that we're anti-government, but we're not. We're not anti-government. We're not anti-police. We're not sovereign citizens. We're not black identity extremists. I specified multiple times to the police that we're abiding by the peaceful journey laws of the United States, federal courts. So just look up Title 18 of the United States Code, subsection 926 alpha or 925 alpha, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the decision of the United States Supreme Court, Young versus Harris, which specifies that merely carrying an arm, or it says, being in the possession of a gun per se constitutes no offense. So we haven't violated any laws. The police seen us on the side of the road with our guns secured. We were afraid, so we got out with our arms, and I have a body camera that's been recording all the time. Excuse me. I reassured them multiple times that we're abiding by the federal laws as well as the judicial opinions of the United States Supreme Court and things like that. But they keep portraying us as being anti-government, but we're not anti-government at all. So please share this video out. Again, this is we're near Wakefield, Massachusetts, going north on I-95 near exit 57. So that's basically it.
What this is, though.
Yeah, that is the states. Alabama, for example, it honors Georgia's gun license.
This guy's just doing the same thing that I'm doing. I want to know what this is. Wait, is this their YouTube?
I mean, you own a gun, don't you?
Yeah. And a couple.
Do you practice with them? Do you go to like the shooting range and stuff every now and then?
I haven't I haven't shot in a long time, if I'm being honest. But I would if ammo wasn't so expensive. And
is ammo expensive?
Had more time, yeah. Oh, was that not showing the whole time? Dang it, bro. That video was supposed to be showing on the screen. I thought when I minimized that it minimized the game, but it didn't. Let me see. I was just trying to figure out what this group is. Rise of the Moors. Wait, Star Slice, what are you talking about? Black the Blue, right? Nacho, back the MAGA. I never said back the MAGA Patriots, okay? Well, I mean, I've said back the Blue before, and I was up there with some of those MAGA folks.
Yeah,
but I don't know what this shit is about.
What was
it was
that like at Capitol? Because you were there, weren't you? Like,
yeah, it was kind of surreal. Yeah,
yeah, man.
It felt kind of weird too. Like even before that day, it just felt kind of like something felt a little off.
How did it escalate though? Because I always like to ask a person who's there, which I think is a very good point. I know a lot of people going about anecdotal bloody evidence, but there's as much as you can see from an objective point of view, rather than just asking an individual who was in that environment from their perspective. Do you get what I mean? So like,
yeah.
Did you go to the Trump? The Trump what is it, the speech or whatever he did, the little rally that he did that was like apparently not too far from
that's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to go to I was gonna go there, live stream that, and then basically live stream like walking over to the building. But we woke up. We
kind of just come from nowhere.
We drank a lot like the night before, so we didn't want to wake up that early to like make it over to the speech. So instead, we actually went over to the Capitol. Like we went over to the building first, before the speech was even over, and there was already like a group of people that were like up there being crazy, and there was like tear gas being thrown and flashbangs going off and shit. And
yeah,
you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Must have been strange.
So we moved
from just
so we moved up to
the immediate escalation of the situation.
Yeah, so we moved up to the side of the like reflecting pond or whatever that's closest to the building, and we just basically stood there. And then like not too long after we got there though, then it was like the Trump people, the people that were at the Trump speech came and showed up, and the majority of the people were, there was probably like 500,000 people out there, but only those like 100 idiots ran inside, and that's something that I like. I have mixed feelings because I don't want it to like take away from like the impact or like the severity of what those idiots who ran in there did. Like, those guys are idiots and they should be condemned and they should be whatever. I'm someone who said that they should basically have the book thrown at them to some degree.
You see, I'm not
because
so
we
sure
wouldn't
on
let
that.
we wouldn't let the left get away with some shit like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like we should be consistent.
Just true. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. It's
at the
just
end of the
weird.
day, mate, a lot of these people have taken and digested information that's been fed to them over a long period of time, and they've eventually reacted like this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These people don't govern. They don't govern the narrative, do they? They don't actually put that message out there. They're a reactionary consequence of that message being pushed, and that's kind of something that frustrates me, because these individuals are going to get the book thrown them at that lot. And I'm talking about, like, I believe in Harvard, the two-faced nature of the justice system.
What's up, Blizzard?
And then you've got individuals who were instigating this kind of rhetoric who are never going to see any kind of consequences from it. So I'm a little on the fence with this, because versus the useful moron who's doing this on behalf of the person who's instigated this with the way they've crafted their rhetoric, is certainly something that's quite close to home for us with our history when it came to Nazi Germany, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because we've seen these kind of events, like, sort of snowball and that lot. And quite frankly, this is why I don't tend to blame the German people as much as I blame the establishment and the complacent establishment in that period of time during then, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who should be held more accountable, because these people running in there are nothing more than patsies to what I would see as an elitist establishment, regardless of whether it's left or right wing. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I just
patsies is in, like, they're going to take the fall for somebody else's bloody shit talking. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I would agree with you on that.
Seems
I don't know what the rules are. I just don't know what the rules and regulations or the laws are as far as, like, because the building is supposed to be, like, public. It is supposed to be a public space. It is usually a place you can just kind of, like, walk into, right? And, like, certain areas might be restricted while they're, like, working or whatever. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can.
So
yeah, you're just not coming through on my phone.
Oh my gosh, I was muted. That's why. So I just don't know what I was trying to say. Like, I just don't know what the rules are as far as, or the regulations and the laws as far as it goes for them being inside the building, because it's like I want those people to be, like, punished, like, but I don't know to what degree, because technically it is supposed to be a public space. To some extent, people are allowed to, like, just walk up in there, like, and tour. Sometimes, like, certain areas will be restricted when they're in session or whatever. But there is also right. So there is also no excuse for anyone who made it into that building. I'm sorry, but, like, I was there early too. Like, I saw what was going on, and I said, our group was like, yeah, we're not going any fucking closer. And if anything, we're trying to get the hell out of here, like, pretty soon. We just wanted to go and live stream get some of the footage. And then we were like, okay, well, we should probably get the hell out of here now. Even before they sent out that notice that was like, hey, there's a curfew. Everyone who's in Washington, D.C. needs to be indoor, like, at home by, like, 6 o'clock or whatever it was. So
Orwellian, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like, for people, for someone to try to make the case that, which I have heard some people on other occasions try to do this, that, oh, well, we were just there and we wanted to visit. Like, oh, well, we were just there and we kind of, like, walked in behind everybody and we didn't really know it was or, like, what about those people that didn't know what was going on? Like, it seems almost impossible for you to not understand the magnitude of what you were doing, like, watching people tear down fences, watching people, because not only was it cops, but once those people got in the building, then there were Trump supporters who were actually up at the front doors keeping people out. Like, so a lot of the like Trump supporters at the front had actually turned on the rest of the mob and was just kind of like, nobody's going in this building. So even still, it was like, you would have had to go through those people, or you would have had to make it through the first time through all the police. There's no way you missed, unless you're actually deaf, the flashbangs going off, because the flashbang sounded like I don't know what. They were loud as fuck, though. I mean, we were really far away, and it sounded like cannons going off. So it's just, it doesn't seem, and I mean, just walking up, because we had to walk up. 2 of our guys basically decided they wanted to go. Like, they split off, and they were like, hey, we're going to go up here for a minute. And then that's when, like, the Trump crowd showed up, and they basically, well, they got in front of some of the other guys that were showing up before the full, like, before the Trump speech was over. But they went up there, and they basically got, like, mob pushed up to the front, like, almost, well, they got pushed up to, like, where the steps are. So there were people that I was with, me and like 2 other people had to go up there and, like, grab them out of the crowd and, like, pull them out and like push our way through the mob or whatever to, like, get them and then get them out.
Well, yeah,
because they're pretty small guys.
People get crushed in those situations.
Right. So,
well, you know what I mean? Like,
right. So even then, though, just walking up through there was like a mist in the air of like fucking pepper spray and bear mace and shit. Like, there's just no possible, there's just no, and tear gas. Like, there's just no possible way that you made it into that building and didn't understand what you were doing. And there's no way, even if if any of those people had went inside the building, I wouldn't have went in there to get them out. I went up there. We only went up there to get them because they weren't in the building. But if they were to have been, like, in the building or gone in the building, like, well, nobody's going fucking. We all basically were like, I'm not fucking going in there. Like, we couldn't even see through we couldn't even see through the crowd of people anyways. So I don't know.
I think what's frustrating for me is that a lot of those people are going to get hit, like, you know, with the book and that lot. Yeah. Any individual, like, you know, that's condemning them 1 minute and then the next minute, like, pandering to that, you know, to that same rhetoric again by the next week, those individuals in a position of authority are not going to see any kind of accountability whatsoever. And I think that's something that settles very uneasy with me. And I see the same thing over here, but we're just a lot more bloody subtle about our demagoguery, if you know what I mean. We're a lot more subtle about it. You know what I mean? Boris Johnson is far slyer than Donald Trump.
Goofy, I was there.
As far as, you know, my opinions on Boris Johnson's concerned, he's far more effective. He plays the fool and the idiot, but he desperately wants to dismantle a lot of the policies that I personally find represent me as someone who's quite patriotic about my country,
no,
the
Gringo.
NHS,
We were talking about the
I mean,
sixth.
the welfare system. You know what I mean? If these things are functional, they create inequality of opportunity. Do you know what I mean? These are why these things were put in place. Yeah, Boris Johnson will play the fool and pander to the crowd, and then behind closed doors, you know, when no one's watching, he'll enact bills and policies that will try and dismantle these things.
Yeah,
and that's a far more insidious kind of a person, if you ask.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I don't talk about that shit a lot, because I don't want it to come off as like me pandering to like you know, far right people. I don't want people to think that I think any of that shit is okay. So I try to be really careful about the way I talk about that and present that, because
you've taken some
even though
from people as well for that, haven't you? You know.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember your redneck debate when redneck ousted you from the right. I saw that on YouTube.
Yeah,
you know, with Dylan.
Yeah, that was really funny. But like,
I mean, that's something I've always respected about you, to be honest. Like, you've been willing to stick to your principles and, you know, stick to your guns, so to speak. You know, for want of a better term, when it comes down to your, you know, your position.
Yeah, I don't, and I've barely changed on a. I mean, there's maybe one. There's definitely one big flip that I've had, which is going from being like absolutely against any kind of like government healthcare or whatever, or like to like, okay, we should probably have a public option. That's one thing that I've switched on. Yeah. But and I don't really want to get into that right now. But like, just there has been like one or maybe two things that I've changed my mind on, but it doesn't change like the way I view things and like my principles, and I still feel like I'm more on the right, even though some of the stuff that like a Tom Dewey Republican would want, some, you know, moderate Democrats would probably want to, but that's, you know, I'm more center right. I'm not like.
I said it to Blizzard in chat, I think, yesterday. I'm not going to lie to anybody. Establishing a public healthcare system
Goofy.
that's going to create a balanced and sustainable free market within the private sector, which has always been my argument, because that's the fact, is a future investment. Do you know what I mean? It's going to take a collective effort to invest for future generations. It's not going to be something you're going to get done overnight, and it's certainly not something you can just take something like what I've looked up, Medicaid and Medicare. It just seems like a band-aid over a gashed wound, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's what a lot of
So
our policy is, right? Though so much of our policy has been like just band-aids on, but it's not band-aids over it's band-aids over band-aids over band-aids. We never like take off
yeah,
any of these band-aids. We never undo any of these
yeah, we
policies,
never
some of these
establish
policies
a
to see if the
foundation, a strong foundation that grows into an actual structure.
yeah
Yeah, I agree
yeah
with you on that for sure. And I think it's certainly something that's over here is becoming apparent as well. This idea that we can have a quick fix. Do you know what I mean? This unwillingness to look ahead into the future for future generations and lay the groundwork for that, and also have the faith to put it into the hands of any other administration that comes along, be it conservative or be it liberal. You know what I mean? And that I think part of that that's preventing that is this lack of respect for the political, the opposite side of the political aisle. I will say one thing that's always been like, there's a very alien thing over here. We don't have this hardcore fundamentalist religious base that's coming through our conservative establishment over here, if you know what I mean. And I'm really, really quite steadfast against fundamentalist, theists. Just right out the bat, I think any form of fundamentalism just creates perpetual conflict. It's that I am right, this makes everybody else wrong, and if they don't view things exactly as I do, you are an enemy by default. I think that's a toxic mentality in whatever ideal that you have.
Yeah.
So I've got no problem with religion. It's just the fundamentalist ones that I have a bit of an issue with.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to have that as prevalent within our conservative base over here now.
That's because of the way that conservatism was shaped by, like I said, that's what my most recent project has been. That's why I haven't done too much as far as like trying to be on panels. I keep getting invited, but like, or talking a whole lot about politics is because most of the time I'm like listening to stuff and doing research, and I was doing a bunch of research on like the history of the entire Republican Party, and there is a difference between a conservative like on the world stage versus a conservative in America, and a lot of that has to do with the movement conservatives and Robert Taft and a lot of that shit that happened then with them basically kicking out like this behavior of like kicking out people that aren't conservative enough.
What, don't toe the party line or
has
like fit in your particular
it's been going on a lot longer than I thought, right? Like I thought this was like a democratic behavior or a left behavior, which it kind of was to some degree, because at first they were they were the champions of like slavery and segregation and other things like that. So if anyone was, like, or even early on, some Republicans were called like radical Republicans just because they wanted to like not only free the slaves, but then like give the slaves like rights and freedoms and basically like lift them up. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just weird, man.
So we've always got to understand this is part of my culture as well. This is always part of any culture throughout the world. They made this reference to how brutal a species we could be. And I said before, if technology advanced quick on a different part of the hemisphere, could you say that they wouldn't have become equally as oppressive and colonized things? I think we've got to remember that we're an involved era. And when it comes back to those eras, the ethical standards of the eras back then, even though we might see people as heroes and that, or like champions, like you say, are still considered unethical today. Do you know what I mean? In society, we've grown further. Democracy is a relatively young concept in the grand scope of history, anyway. So when we forget that, for a good example, Winston Churchill, Britain's saviour, of the Second World War, couldn't stand the people from India. Yeah, he thought it was perfectly fine to gas them. Because they were subhuman. That doesn't change the fact that he banded the country together and led us against the German threat, but the Nazi threat. Sorry, but you can't deny that individual still had those. So we've got to understand that human beings can be immeasurably cruel and merciful at the same times. We're not just one or the other, So philosophically, I've always found this. Again, this fundamentalist black and white way of judging things to be so counterproductive and divisive. That it almost like stunts us from making any kind of progress.
Yeah, I don't really. Man, like, that's where I struggle with, like,
I've got ADHD, so
moving.
I talk really fast. Mate.
No, you're good. That's where I struggle, like, with moving forward, like what. Because I struggle. That's why I did so much research into, like, the party history, because I was like, first of all, like, how did we get here? Like, how did Republicans go from Lincoln to Trump? And then second of all, like, can it be salvaged? And so I think, like, looking back on it, I think it can. But it takes a lot. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of work from the ground up, right? It's going to take, like, local politicians influencing other bigger politicians, etc., to change, like, the Republican Party.
You are little brothers. You're a relatively young country. Let's, in the grand scope of, say, Europe and everything else. Like, I say these issues that you're going through are like issues that almost every country in its history has gone through before as well, if you get what I mean. Like, we've always had these, for want of a better term, fascistic threats or divisive moments, and I try and reassure, some American friends and that lot that, it's not something that can be salvaged. It's something that you're probably going to get through and grow through. You know what I mean? I have a lot of faith in you guys. Winston Churchill said, you can trust America to do the right thing after they've tried everything else.
Yeah.
So, I honestly don't have that negative an impression on America. More so like a fascination, you know what I mean, with this little.
At the time, though, like, there was that attitude for a while, though. It took us a while to make a lot of, like, significant changes and stuff, but
any society are allowed to do that. And then if you take an example of what your society is, you are literally a nation that spans a continent, with many facets of different cultural aspects to you in it. If you go from the north of America to the south of America, it's going to be a vastly different experience, isn't it? You've even got different structures of law enforcement, from state troopers to metropolitan police, where we just have a police force across the country, So, you're a fascinating experiment. I thought you guys would have imploded a long time ago. So,
I think even some people in America probably thought that. I'm sure.
Well, I think the task alone of America is probably the grandest experiment of free society that we've probably ever seen within history, which is probably why people look to America as the leaders of the free world. You didn't. Yeah. Like, we started off as a monarchy, and that's true. And monarchy is just a polite way of saying dictatorship.
Yeah. And even
people born into power, monarchy's a dictator.
Even I've got into, like, some people who are from the UK with that today, because I'm like, well, technically, they're like, oh, well, America's fascist, Trump is fascist. That was I know we've had a little tit and tat, but it's not really like. There was someone who was really on it, though, in my chat, that was like really serious about it. Like, I don't take it, me and you going back and forth like that seriously most of the time. I usually know, you know what I mean, but this person was really, like, on, like, oh, well, nothing that, like, we're not a monarchy, like, not, the queen doesn't have any power. And I was like, well, they do have power, though. They just don't use it.
You're right. Yeah. You're right. You maybe have to take a step back and think about it. Technically, technically the queen can dissolve parliament, but if she did that with human rights and modern, like, capitalism,
probably people would push back on that. Yeah, probably people would push back on that, like, rightly so, but it doesn't change the fact that it's codified into your law that she does have this power, and that the royal family does have this power.
It's kind of like, it's the term steelman. Is that the term to kind of, like,
I guess maybe
argue on your point of view. To say the fact is that if you see the monarchy everywhere, like, it's Her Majesty's fucking law enforcement. You know what I mean? That's on the badge. It's Her Majesty's. You know what I mean? It's the Royal Mail still today. You see the monarchy's symbolism and kind of, like. I'm a northerner, so I'll say stain. Others will say, like, you know what I mean, mark or symbol. Everywhere within our society. So that's true. It's like we still have these old laws where the only person who could run a red light is the Royal Mail. You know what I mean? These old bygone laws that have never been fucking changed. You know what I mean? And I often think that a wise leader would probably rip out more pointless old structures than established structures, if you get what I mean. because we've got so much, like you said, band-aids on top of band-aids. Some of this stuff's got to be ripped off, and we've got to actually stitch up these wounds. You know what I mean? And that takes a longer generational effort, and I think that might be something we've lost from history. You know, from our historical predecessors. This willingness to establish a foundation, to see that foundation through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that we shouldn't necessarily be afraid of like taking the training wheels off and seeing if, you know what I mean, seeing if we can ride without them. Like, to some degree, I think so much of like the whole, a lot of the cancel culture stuff, I think some of it comes from like a good place, right? It comes from a place like empathy. You just want to like care for people. You want people to treat each other right. But we shouldn't need the government to enforce like how people treat each other. Like that should be something that's taught in our education. That should be something that's like that's taught like in our culture. You know what I mean? Like we should just a lot of that should really fall on like parents and people raising like the next generation. But I understand why some people feel like it should be policy.
Kind of an interesting analogy there. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, any leader should treat their society as a parent would treat their own child, wouldn't they? You know, you should be willing to. I've always said over here, you know, like what we've a big problem we've had over here is, you know, during a pandemic and during a recession. You know what I mean? Boris Johnson had this thing where it was like, clap for the NHS. You know, every day we'd have a moment where we come out of our houses and we clap for it. It was a great moment. Everyone here, everyone clapping across the council estates, and it's brilliant and everything else. You know what? I'm pretty sure those fucking NHS fucking workers would prefer a raise that you denied them, fucking arsehole, you know, rather than us clapping for them. You know what I mean? So, like, put your money where your mouth is. And the irony is these same politicians, they get a raise and stuff. So quite frankly, I think a politician's income should be associated with how well the economy's going. You know what I mean? If we're going to go capitalistic here, let's add a little bit of financial incentive to the politician. Raise up the economic, you know, the economic and the industry within the country, and then you can have your damn raise. Yeah.
Apparently, sorry, someone else asked me something else. I guess sort of breaking news, or it's, for me it is. Something about North Carolina to remove like the pistol permit. I don't know what this is.
Permit.
I'm looking it up.
This gun thing, mate. I'm not like. You see, I've grown up in a society where you don't have much options for gun ownership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it is a very alien thing, and I think people instantly default and think that I'm anti-gun. I'm more fascinated by the Second Amendment, if anything else, you know?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, the Second Amendment drove us out. It was a bunch of militias that kicked the greatest army in the world's ass, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
And without that Second Amendment, you wouldn't have achieved that. So I can't deny the fact that if my government became a totalitarian government, that I would find it incredibly harder to rebel against that. I can agree with that philosophical argument. But do you not think that the Second Amendment needs reform or is a little outdated to the era where it came from? Because professional militaries have access to equipment that militias just don't anymore today. You know what I mean? It's not flintlock.
Yeah, but does that mean that... Right, but that's kind of like that's kind of the slippery slope, right? Like that's what bothers a lot of people who are pro Second Amendment, right?
Yeah.
That just seems like that seems pretty Orwellian. You know what I mean? Like, why? What's wrong with that? Don't you trust the government to have a monopoly on militias? You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you trust the government? Like, wait a minute.
Straight, like, because to me that seems like a fairly reasonable and objective way to analyze something. But to yourself, from your culture, to you, it seems like, holy fuck, stay away from my fucking rifle. Yeah.
And the fact that this is already embedded in our it has proven itself, right? Like it's proven its own utility already. So why would we?
As a result of that amendment.
Exactly. So it's like, why would we ever want to change that? You know, so.
Well, that's what I meant by reform. I didn't mean reform in any one direction, did I?
No.
Exactly say, it needs reform to grade. But also, I don't want people selling Apache helicopters at Walmart. That might be a bit much.
Yeah.
That might be a bad term, you know. That's a bad term, isn't it? Sorry, just military helicopters. That's a better term, isn't it? My apologies. This is where I get myself in trouble, Nacho. Yeah, I'm a problem child on the left. Yeah, I say stuff and I get myself in so much trouble. I get myself cancelled.
I'm trying to look up this law too while I'm talking, but Apparently, I don't know what the pistol purchase permit law is though. But once we have like guns, and once they're embedded into our culture the way that they are, it is not going to be possible to just rip this Band-Aid off. Like, this is not going to be. This is not a situation where it's not. And that's what bothers me about. There's some people on the left that like they want to present totally like unrealistic solutions to this. Like, I don't mind investigating things. Like, I feel like probably more education would be the real solution, right? I mean, whenever we're talking about underage sex, and we're talking about abortion, and we're talking about kids having, like, people having kids like out of wedlock, and like putting kids up for adoption, or so many things, we the solution wouldn't be to ban sex, right? Like, there's all these negative things that come. Right, but that's what I'm saying. That's what it looks like.
To do that, yeah.
That's what it looks like, though, right? Like, you wouldn't ban people from having sex because there's a lot of good things that can come from sex. Like, it's fun. It creates more humans.
Because during the pandemic, the Tory government said people should not have sexual relations unless they're a lifelong partner. And I was like, that's not happening, mate. Like, that's
because Tinder and shit was like the super spreader.
Let's take something as small as cigarettes, right? We know cigarettes kill you. We know they cause you cancer, yeah? We know they're no good, right? Try and take them off of society after you've given it to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's the society? Immediately go full triggered over that. And it's kind of a joke off the immaturity of the masses. But then if you escalate it and you try and take guns away from an American culture where their entire independence and freedom was achieved off the basis of that Second Amendment, then that's just completely, just unrealistic and utterly, like, not pragmatic at all in trying to solve a solution. You know what I mean? But on the flip side, you have a serious problem, you know, when it comes to school shootings, don't you? And I know you don't like it, but the NHS or a national health service or a public health service or an aspect of that would aid in that. You know what I mean? It would, because people get signposts. People with mental illnesses over here, they've got history and records. They get signposts the necessary help that they have to. So I find a lot of the solutions that I feel could help get shot down because people are terrified of a word called socialism. You know?
Yeah.
And in essence, my policies are very, very mild over here.
I mean, but rightly so, though.
Extreme over there.
There should always be a healthy, like, skepticism, right? Like, we shouldn't just wholly trust the government every time, and so that is fine. To your point or whatever, like, it does kind of discredit a lot of the people who are opposition, or a lot of people who are on the right in a lot of these situations, if the only argument they can present is Marxist, racist, or not Marxist, communist, socialist, whatever. You know what I mean? It really takes away from, like, the meat of their argument if they can ever even get there.
Marx?
So.
Have you ever read Karl Marx?
Barely.
Yeah, is it like the Necronomicon to you? It's like a forbidden book.
I have a lot of reading to do on that too, but I just feel like it's such a waste. No. It's such a waste of time. Like, a lot of people want to debate this, but I just.
No, there's quite an ironic thing for me, because, like, you should know it by now. I view things probably to my own fault through a very philosophical lens, and Plato is quite an interesting character, because Plato pointed out that the biggest flaw of democracy, the biggest Achilles heel of it, is that it's the court of popularity. Okay.
Yeah.
And that much is true. However, Plato also had an idea where you would steal newborn babies from their parents, so their love for the state didn't conflict with their love for their parents. That's pretty damn fascistic.
Holy yeah, that's crazy.
I don't read Plato and treat it like it's a roadmap of how I should govern my life. You know, I might take some parts from it and acknowledge it, but other stuff, I'm like, you're an absolute lunatic. I treat Marx the same way. You know what I mean? So this idea that the book of Marx is some gospel, you know what I mean? Like some fundamentalist Bible, it's just as damaging as, say, an evangelical Christian who wants to bring in Sharia law Christian edition. Do you get what I mean? It's just,
people can take.
It's so toxic.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not, like, wholly against. Like, I just want to make sure, like, we don't let our government, like, run away with a bunch of, like, crazy shit, like powers. Like, even the right has helped implement things like the Patriot Act and some other really invasive laws in the country. And I think that is just a natural tendency of government. I think that government, regardless of which side it is, will naturally write itself more power, right? The government naturally will want to consume more and more power and have more and more control over the state and over the citizens. Just by nature. I don't think it's like I don't think that it's some nefarious
establishment.
Yeah, I don't think it's some nefarious thing where like people are like, ooh, this pulling the strings. I just think this is how government naturally develops.
And it was foreseen because this is why you have term limits, isn't it? Do you know, at the end of the day, that power is supposed to be temporary. You know
and that's why so many people want to push for term limits
will always lead to the wrong outcome.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people, like on both sides, want to push for term limits in all positions, and I think we probably should.
You've got down that slippery slope. That's what you're trying to get at, and I 100% agree with you on that. You know, I think you're right. We should be skeptical of the government, and
in a healthy way, though, not
naive about it. Yeah, in a healthy way,
not like Alex Jones, like the demons are coming in from the fucking from alternate dimensions to come and take over the government with lizard people. Like that's a bit much. Like you shouldn't lose sleep over it, but I mean, when you're especially locally, that's what I try to preach to everybody though too. Because we have so much influence on our local government, you should probably focus there first, because that's where you're going to see all the change. A lot of this stuff on the federal level, you're not going to see immediately. Not that you shouldn't worry about it, but it's like the where you can affect, your local government, that's where you should be more focused on anyways. Because let's say the shit really did hit the fan, you should want to know, and like I do, you should want to know that your state is going to take care of things the way they need to take care of things. Like your state, and that your local government is going to take care of their people first.
Well, I'm quite naive to this because, like, for me, we have counties. We don't have states that can govern themselves like countries. If anything could be considered a state, maybe Scotland has. Actually, Scotland has nowhere near the same power as a state, I would suggest. So you do have that interesting independence of states or provinces within your grander nation. So this federal government, state government relationship, I don't think's really here, if you know what I mean. So it's definitely a blind spot for me when I'm trying to craft my arguments for people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't take these factors into account. And I think there's a lot of great points. Like, one of the biggest, weakest things about your state system is your response to the pandemic. Okay? To the pandemic, we need the collective response. You know what I mean? To be able to catch it in this window of opportunity. Well, let's agree, we lost a lot of that time because of a lot of bad faith actors from the CCP not giving information that we needed. However, our big benefit of the state system is that you guys are well ahead of us on weed policy because states can legalize cannabis if they so choose to.
Yeah.
For us, it would have to be legalized across the country or not. Does that make sense? So it's an all or nothing thing for us, where you can gradually grow and evolve into that kind of a nation through the states individually starting to say, okay, well, weed's not so bad. You know what I mean? So
which is, and this is why I'm not like against a lot of these larger like social or socialist light kind of policies. I'm not generally against like UBI, but like I want to see you try it and test it in your state first. Like how can Democrats not get a lot of this stuff passed?
The way that your system's structured,
exactly. So it does bother me when people want to skip that step, right? Like it does bother me.
You're 100% on point there, I think. Yeah. You're correct. You can actually practice these things out and see whether they have positive or negative means. And if you're willing to address the reality of it, you can actually make steps to actually establish a positive outcome from these choices. Or you can say, right, that doesn't work, we need to drop that.
Yes.
I'm okay for weed, but I'm not okay for decriminalizing crack. I'm sorry, I'm conservative in that area. You know what I mean? Like, they're two vastly different things.
See, and even me, I'm probably pretty libertarian on that one. But I have, what I think is a decent solution, or at least a good place to start, because a lot of people are addicted to drugs, and we do want to help them. We do want to get them off the streets. But part of what's like, they're also feeding a black market, right? So not only are they themselves are likely to commit crimes and do other things because of their drug habits, or in order to get their drugs or to get their fix or whatever. But then they're also feeding into that. They're helping maintain and establish that economy, that black market economy, which also provides jobs to some degree to individuals who can't find anything somewhere else. It's like, so you have to start working at dismantling that black market economy. And I think one of the ways that we could probably do that is to implement some sort of facilities where people can go and use cleanly, and not decriminalize, but basically have a separate kind of system for drug users, because I don't necessarily see drug use. I don't think they have any place in a prison or something like that. It depends, right? If they're on the scale of they're bringing in semi trucks full of cocaine, okay, I can see why you would want to throw those people in prison. But if you're talking about the average user, or just the guy who fucking sold a couple baggies on the street corner, it's kind of I don't think they have any
problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's treating the symptom and not the disease.
Yeah, so then two parts to that, I guess. The other part is that I think there needs to be two separate prison systems too, right? I think there needs to be one for violent crimes, or crimes that if in that situation, even though that's not technically a crime, to bring in semi trucks full of fucking coke and other drugs, but to some degree you did impact a shit ton of people, and you're probably more dangerous to the public. You should probably go into this place too. So people who are going to attack people who are going to be violent and stuff like that can go to one place where it's basically defunded a lot, and they don't get a nice comfy fucking bed to sleep on, and a bunch of you can basically rot for all I care. If you're going to rape people, if you're going to murder people, you can go eat shit. If you're a white collar criminal,
this is where I'm extremely.
I feel like there should be a less.
I'm pro death penalty, me, which is funny coming from a leftist.
I have mixed feelings about the death penalty. I think we should.
If I'm pro death penalty, I've got to be pro euthanasia, haven't I?
I'm only pro.
That to me, that would be hypocritical to be pro death penalty, to kill a rapist or to kill a thing, but then not to allow somebody to say with my granddad to end his suffering. It would be very hypocritical for me to say I'm pro death penalty, but then I'm not pro that.
See,
that's how I find where consistency in my position needs to be. I need to be consistent in that if anyone's going to respect what I'm saying,
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. I think that part of me wants to say yeah, we should have a death penalty, but if the problem, the biggest flaw is that someone else is killing that other person, right? So then it's just and there's no way you can switch off your humanity. I don't care who you are. If you're the doctor injecting people constantly to kill them, that has to weigh heavy on your conscience. And I don't feel like that burden. I don't feel like someone should have to take that. I don't feel like someone should have to take on that burden.
That's the argument as well, isn't it? If you're the excuse to doing that over and over.
Exactly. So
you see, philosophically, I'm definitely emotionally compromised when it comes to a death penalty position. You know what I mean? I would say I'm very biased.
If there was a way to build an algorithm, you know what I'm saying, that's just gonna randomly, a fish food dispenser, right? One day when they're going through the line, their tray is just gonna have poison in it, and they're gonna die.
You were telling me I was Orwellian before.
Wait, what?
You were telling me I was Orwellian before.
No, I know it sounds crazy, but it's I want it to make the statement, right? To some degree, an eye for an eye. If you've taken someone's life, I even feel that maybe rapists and child molesters and pedophiles and stuff, to some degree, I feel like those people probably should get a life sentence, because you have ruined someone's life for the rest of their life. The fact that people like that get out after 8 months.
Issue for me.
I
am extremely prejudiced towards those kind of people. So I've got to admit, when my personal experience and emotions not undermine, but almost pollute my position in that respect, I've got to be aware of that. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I'm not being honest and candid with myself, and I can't be honest and candid with somebody else that I'm speaking to.
I've also toyed with this one, philosophically. I wonder what your, because I don't want to forget it, but I have a. Do you think that the government should allow people to commit suicide? Do you think that we should allow like government assisted suicide, or maybe not government assisted, but like
this
assisted
is again,
suicide.
And again, it's over here. It's connected to our religious structure that came from before it became a secular society. And you're asking a very personal issue for me there. Again, that's a very good question. I'd probably say no, because a person in that moment in time might have a very different mindset if they get kind of help that they need. And I know I keep sounding like a broken clock, and I know Bliss is going to give me a load of shit for this, but an NHS, a public funded health service, can actually help people, because, like, for example, my best mate, who's like a brother to me, his missus went to the hospital during the pandemic. She needed an MRI scan, and she got seen in 3 hours. Now, I know this sounds like, well, wait a minute, don't all
I'm definitely small government, but
no, not exactly.
I also
they've got a history on
also realize that we already basically have a big government.
Priority,
so.
because they've known her since a kid. Do you know what I mean? So, if you kind of fall between the cracks when it comes to mental health, you've probably seen it yourself. The results can be devastating.
Yeah.
So, so that necessary thing for me, a public funded health service, is the hill that I die on, because those services have aided and helped me and people that have been close to me at the most important of times, where they probably would have, in the long run, ended up maybe even taking their own lives.
Yeah, and I feel like, I feel like we could probably do both, right? Like, I think that especially yeah, and especially with our budget, that we spend a shit ton of money on, and this is what. So this ties into. Somebody in the chat just asked me. Japri said like how big government or small government, and this kind of ties into that, because it's like we spend like 27% of our budget on healthcare, and we get the least out of it.
Exploit you guys.
We get the least out of it in comparison to every other fucking country. So this is where I say that. So what my answer was basically like, I'm for small government and for less government intervention, but I also understand that our government is already pretty big, that our budget is already pretty big. We already have some pretty large social safety nets. So what I would want to do when it comes to healthcare is a little different from what a lot of conservatives want, and also a little different than what the left wants, because a lot of people on the left would basically be like, whatever it takes, we'll pay more taxes, we'll do whatever we have to do. My take would be like, hey, we're already spending 27% of our budget on this shit. Yeah. How about we force them to be responsible with the budget, audit that shit, and spend it in, provide us like a public option, do away with like Medicaid, Medicare, and keep things like the VA, right? I still think that like veterans probably deserve like, a pretty high standard of like healthcare, and they deserve their own kind of like thing, I think. But do away with all the other versions of healthcare that we provide, and just provide an option that you can opt into for healthcare, using that same 27% of the budget, so that we don't have to pay more in taxes and we get more out of our system. Like, so then you wouldn't
to do that across the country,
and here's the difference too, because it would never be to abolish or like get rid of private healthcare, right? So like the USPS system, the US Postal Service exists, but we don't have to use that, right? We can use UPS, we can use Amazon, we can use FedEx, we can use faster forms of mailing or whatever, right? But that option still exists.
Private sector in check,
right? That option still exists. Yeah, that option still exists if we need it, right? So that's kind of the way I would view like the healthcare issue. But a lot of politicians wouldn't want to do that.
Public sector.
But a lot of politicians wouldn't want to do that, because it would force them to basically put their fucking nose to the grindstone. Yeah, they would have to get to the grindstone and get some shit done, and they would have to work through the shit. They would have to go through the budget. They would have to figure out how to reprogram this.
People their own career. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
and they don't want to actually work. They just want to get reelected.
That's a long-term goal. We have similar problems like that over here. So, but to really double back a bit when you were talking about, the drug issue and the legalization of weed. So, yeah. I don't know how it is over there, but over here, one of the massive financial, revenue that goes to fund worse narcotics, for example, is the fact that
Japri, hit me with the facts. What would
You know
fix
what I mean?
it?
This is a massive revenue for these people who sell cocaine and sell crack and everything
Yeah.
else. You took that away from them here, yeah? You
Yeah.
would kneecap their financial foundation immediately, if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
So
that's
you probably see a massive decline in their ability to apply the logistics of what they do today. You know, with transporting drugs into the country, they haven't got the money to fund buying cocaine. Do you get what I mean? They
Yeah.
get sold to probably an elitist bunch of people. It's a really expensive drug anyway per gram, etc.
Yeah, and Jay
my
Priest
job.
said in the chat,
So-
like, something that would fix is like, I work in healthcare. You want to know what would fix it? And I said, fix the price gouging in medical sales and medicine.
Exactly.
That's something.
Need
That's something that this would. And that's something that
alone, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah,
you know?
that's something that I feel like a public option would help with. You know what I mean?
I just think that the public, when it comes specifically to healthcare, that the public and private sector can actually benefit each other. And here we go to the very unpopular opinion that my left-wing friends give. Like, they treat me like I'm Satan's little helper for this. But I'm sorry, I want a functional public healthcare sector. And to have that functional sector, you have to have paid into it first in tax.
Yeah.
So if someone's coming over to this country, I'm sorry, but I don't want to allow you to have access to healthcare unless you pay
Oh,
for
true.
so many years.
Actually, no. I'm with you on that. Like, you should have to work for like a year, right? At the least 6 months,
in order
like
for
something.
that system to work and maintain itself, that compromise has to be made. And like, I get so much heat for that. You know what I mean? From the left, I'm just trying to find a way to get my ideal to actually work in reality.
Well, it's like
That makes
anything. There's a
sense.
lot of companies. There's a lot of companies that offer like stock options and other stuff, right? Or they offer like a sign-on bonus, but you have to work there for like 90 days first, right? Or you have to work there for like
Unfortunately,
6
see,
months to a year
that
to get your stock
frustrates me.
options. Like,
Oh, wow.
wait, but it's the same thing,
why on
right?
earth is no, it's not. Why is your employer doing anything but deciding whether you keep your job or whether you get paid? When you pay me as a capitalist, you don't get to be landlord over what provider I get. I go to the private healthcare provider and I sign a contract directly with them because there's a fucking person in the free market. I buy what I choose to buy.
Wait, but
When
they
I go
don't
to a
dictate that
hospital-
to you, though. I feel like you might have a misconception there. Like they don't.
It might be right, but my perspective is like benefits that you get through your work almost makes you beholden to that employer, does it not? Like, if you want to leave and go to somewhere else, and then you're looking for something with similar benefits or better benefits, aren't you?
I don't know for sure,
If you leave your employer and you've invested that much money into that healthcare provider via your work, then when you leave to a different job and they've got a different provider, where does all that money go that you've invested? Does that come with you?
No, I'm
Does that
pretty
keep
sure.
covering you?
I'm pretty sure you can keep your healthcare in a lot of situations. Depends on how long you've had it
Right.
for, but I think in almost
Because that's
every,
the
I think in almost every
That's
case,
a fear I have about that. It's like an employer's a landlord over your healthcare. That's something that seems kind of, I guess, to you when you talked about the gun argument that I made before. To me, that seems really Orwellian to me. You know what I mean? I'm kind of afraid.
yeah.
of
But that was
concept,
just
you know?
what I was relating to was the what you said about like paying in, right? Like we do this in a
true.
lot of other places, and people are okay with it. But then you say, well, okay, well then if we have all these, if we start having these larger social safety nets, we have to we're going to have to keep immigration in check, and we're going to have to make sure that people who do immigrate here are paying into the tax system for like 6 months to a year before they start being able to like, use all of these benefits that we offer.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden there's pearl clutching, and everybody wants to be like, why? Like what? How could you treat people like that? And I'm like, well, what do you mean though?
Yeah.
Like they have to.
What do you mean? I want this structure to work. I don't
we
want
have
it to go actually. I don't want
It's
it
like
to collapse. And if we have to do that, we need to do that.
Yeah, you have to help me help you.
Yeah, help me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you see, that kind of perspective, that fence sitter willingness gets you so much heat from both sides.
Oh yeah, for
Because
sure.
of the extremity of it, and I even see that over here. Like I said, I'm afraid. And the minute I mention that I want to deny, immigration, like, okay, you want to deny welfare too? What are you, flipping Starling? Like, it's like, calm down. You know what I mean? I just want this system to work because I know if we don't have a functional public healthcare system, we might end up like America. Sorry. But like it is a fear,
when it comes to healthcare, yeah.
Yeah. So that's it's very. In order to achieve these things, you've got to find a balance to stuff and enact that in reality. Things might be perfect in your mind. Like ideas are born twice, once in the mind, then in reality. They're never going to be perfect when you create them in reality. So you've got to make. This is where we have two-party systems for a reason. We have liberals and conservatives, you know what I mean? For a reason. It's grown like that lot because when the discourse is positive and it is bipartisan, these systems can function. Now, the original NHS was a bipartisan bill signed by both conservatives and liberal alike. I think it was after the Second World War. You know what I mean? I like to emphasize that a lot. It's not just a left-wing concept that happened over here. You know what I mean? And there are many, many flaws that come along with it now. The NHS today and the system we have today is not the system that we used to have. And sometimes we can find solutions to our current problems in the past and how things were applied. You know? So, yeah, man. Like, it's frustrating how you get so much pushback over such asinine and insignificant stuff. And, like, how people overlook some of the biggest issues just for the sake of trying to, I don't know, play for their side. Does that you get what I mean? Like, you know, band together, you know, pull your weight. You know,
that's what I don't like.
All these concepts, like I'm a left winger, I've got to be anti-death penalty. I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, that's literally what our founding
liberal about others.
Literally, what our founding fathers warned against was you know, partisan and forming parties. They literally told us, like, hey, don't form parties. Bad shit happens when you form parties. What do? We form parties. Now, we've got a lot of good things. We've got a lot of like pretty good bipartisan bills that have passed as a result of like us working together. But then, just like what you said, you do have that problem with people being willing to basically just defend anything that their side is. Like, we saw, that was one of the most egregious things that I saw through the election and through the past 4 years. And it started under Obama with the whole, like, some of the BLM and the Antifa and stuff turning into riots, people shooting cops, and like, and this is something that carried on for almost 6 years, and Democrats were really quiet about it. And it's like, dude, we just at least be consistent. Like, don't allow these bad people on your side to, like.
Plato stated democracy is the court of popularity. That's the point that Plato was making. Because they're so desperate to not be unpopular, they will ignore or be.
Yeah.
They'll ordain themselves in ignorance to what is going to be far glaring problems in the long run. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we're quite fucked up as a human species. We still haven't evolved much socially, you know, as a societies if we've been getting on, and we're constantly in flux. Yeah. So, I try and just laughed at the absurdity of it. You know what I mean? I got called an anarchist the other day by Buckeye, and you know what? He might have a point. I might have anarchistic elements.
I definitely do.
I don't want. I'm not like the Joker. I'm not like chaos is fair. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't want a lawless, unstructured society. You know, that's not my game here. But I am anti-establishment because I believe those in establishment, like Pelosi, like McConnell, like Boris Johnson, are using the more emotionally immature nature of the masses to gain what they want above others, you know.
Yep, so, that's what bothers me, and that's what makes me so. It just shows that, like, a lot of them are so unprincipled, and so many people, even on the right side, I got pissed off at whenever the 6th happened, and a lot of people were trying to make excuses, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, 2 weeks ago, you were screeching about the damage that's been done via, you know, uppercase Black Lives Matter and Antifa and some of these people that wanted to go around and riot and shit.
Explain to me what this lower uppercase Black Lives
Matter I make a distinction because I don't want it to come across as okay. So I make the distinction because here locally we had some really positive like Black Lives Matter movement. I distinguish that there is a movement and there is like the uppercase establishment, and they like that was established by there is a company that exists. It is an actual company or like a non-profit. They took a shit ton of money, and they played on people's emotions to raise money for, you know, George Floyd's death or whoever else's death, and then to give any of this money to the families. They all went and bought fucking houses with it, and they did the same thing that you were just talking about as far as, like, you know, people playing off of
the ideals, shared ideals,
the ignorance of the masses.
Now you're an institute who has its own personal interests.
Yeah. So locally,
I often make that argument for religious institutes as well. Like my nan, before she passed and that lot, was a Catholic, and she was probably one of the nicest, most inspirational people that I come across, as she inspired so many people to be at her funeral. There wasn't a bad bone in her body. Now, that's not to say that the Pope isn't an arsehole who ignores child pedophilia. Do you get what I mean? The Institute of Catholicism itself does not necessarily reflect the individuals that Catholicism, the Institute, might try to manipulate, if you get what I mean. And I think the same thing applies with any concept or shared ideal when you start developing institutes about it. You know what I mean? Is the Institute really got the people's shared ideals, as a priority, or are they actually just manipulating it to gain something for themselves?
Yeah. So, but I don't know. Like, it just seemed weird to me that I don't like the idea of ignoring, like what your side is. And that's why I feel like, what I was talking to, I think I was talking to Sprout, but it was we were talking off stream, and I was just saying, like, a lot of the reason why I have pushback for a lot of people on the right is because I want to fucking win. Like, I'm more critical of my side because I want to bring back the more traditional Republican Party that, was championing like the freed slaves and you know what I mean? Like,
being able to lay into the supposed side that you represent.
And I told him, that's what I'm saying. Like, I told him, I was like, look, if I'm on a team, right? If you say that this is team sports, when I was on a team, I don't remember losing a match and then going into the locker room and complaining about the other side or complaining about the other team and saying like, "Oh, they suck, dude. Really They're a bunch of losers." No, we went. You go into the locker room and you say, you go into the locker room and you say, and your coach tells you like, "This is where we failed." And the players point out like, "Yeah, we could have done better here, and here," and you practice and you get better. And then you go and win. Like, you don't sit there and have a circle jerk and say like, "Oh, the other side."
Ordain yourself in ignorance, self-ordained ignorance. Yeah,
right.
I agree with you on
that. That's kind of my mentality when it comes to like, if people want to know like, why are you so critical of the right and why are you so critical of Republicans? Well, that's because I want them to do better.
It's necessary. And then to add a bit of a cherry on top of that Sunday, show me a nation with a 90% approval rating, and I'll show you an oppressive regime. Okay. Yeah, the fact that people go on about the approval ratings and that lot being like so shaky in some ways over in this country is an argument that I see from a lot of tankies. That's an indicator of the freedom to be able to criticize and evolve your positions. Do you know what I mean? And work together. The actual courage to be able to criticize yourself or your demographic or your positions that you take collectively as a people is absolutely necessary, because otherwise you just stick your head in the sand and you just allow whoever to take over the situation and that lot, and that's where you end up with the many being subservient to the few. And if we look throughout history, we can see this with the monarchs. Divide and conquer was there long before fascistic practices were being practiced during times of royal families, long before we saw stuff like what happened in Germany. So this stuff's always been a toxic potential illness of societies if we're not careful. I mean, democracy is still relatively young historically.
Yeah. Am I excited? Wait, am I excited with Trump running in 2024? Has he decided that he's going to run? I hadn't seen this. I think it's a.
I can't help but say it.
I think it's a. I think it's a mistake. I'm sorry. Like,
Fury, thank you very much. Yeah, no Tangerine Fury for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't like the idea of that. Oh God, I don't hate everything about Trump. I'm really critical of Trump because I don't want people I don't want people running around with this idea, on the right and Republicans. I don't want people running around this idea that Trump was like the greatest fucking president we ever had, because it's just not the case. There were he did some things that I can appreciate. Even though a lot of people hate it.
Help me out here.
So a lot of people hate it, but I was actually pretty glad that he fucking shit all over the media. Now the fact that he was never off of Twitter doesn't help that, because like in the grand scheme, in the larger picture, he looks like an asshole. Like, it just makes him come off like the, he shows himself like he's a narcissist. He's a bit of an asshole. He's kind of corrupt. What?
He didn't what? Media that said stuff he didn't like. He didn't shit on Fox News though, did he?
Sure, but even he did. He came after Fox at one point.
Things,
But either way, so I, to some degree, part of me likes that just because of the pure fact that so many of our fucking leaders kowtow to the media and are just like groveling at their feet, like, please say something good about me, please don't talk bad about me. And I really wish that to some degree, I really wish that presidents would kind of tell the media to piss off, and because I would rather see you in the White House, like, I would rather not see you and see things getting done than I would, you know what I mean? Than I would see you on some interview, like,
or the image you want someone.
And I understand that it's important to do some of that stuff, but I feel like we've gotten to a point where we kind of do like too much of it. Like, I feel like we need to dial a bit of that back. We've got a lot of things on our plate. And I think, presidents and leaders would be, doing us all a service by staying out of in front of the camera and in the fucking office with their nose to the books.
I agree, but like I think with me and Trump, it's the rhetoric. You know what I mean? And I do agree with this concept of Orange Man bad, because I've always made the argument we've been distracted by Orange Man bad for 4 years, but last time I checked, he wasn't trying to get people stoned in the street. Do you know what I mean? For like getting a divorce and that one. If we look at and we've had our eyes on this Orange Man.
Your mic cut out. Hello. Hello.
From the CCP.
Your mic cut out there for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we while being distracted by Orange Man, we haven't seen the growth and the second culture that is being genocided by the CCP.
Mm-hmm.
I will always say, to me, that is a threat that is on a Nazi Germany level that we cannot ignore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we might criticize ourselves and have a go at ourselves about, our equality of opportunity, say in America, or I'll give you guys a lot of shit for the NHS and your healthcare system and that lot. Under no circumstances do I think you're in any same of the realms of Trump was any kind of a threat like flipping Winnie the Pooh is. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely think that that's a genuine existential threat to the free world, because in order to establish a society that is okay with industrialized genocide, you've got to condition themselves to xenophobic natures. They've got to think that they're superior. So I'll send you the link for that fellow. You'll probably find it quite interesting, the person who lived over in China and that lot and fled. It's very glaring how he speaks about the change of the public, their attitude towards foreigners, over the last 5 years, and that kind of comes through propaganda. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry, but Fox News, all these other outlets, even though I might joke and say they're Satan's little helpers and that lot, they're on no kind of scale of a threat as I would think is what's going over there right now, and we've got to put that kind of stuff in perspective. You know what I mean? As allies.
So so something else is that I think that Trump did a good job. Well, unintentionally, I think he did this, but the media and big tech and a lot of these like social media companies really pulled the mask off of themselves and really exposed that, like, they showed their power level, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, they showed just how much weight they have to throw around. And if they can do it, if they can make you lose, they can make anybody lose, right? If they can influence elections this much, then they can do it to anybody on either side. And so we really need to be keeping our eye on this and trying to figure out the best way going forward on how to keep, big tech's, grip from being too, from strangling democracy, I guess.
This reality might, a little fun fact, this reality might be a bit salty for certain Trump voters and that lot who don't think that the whole Russia interfering election things actually really happened. However, not only did the FBI and that lot say that was what was going on during the 2016 elections, but the British MI6 said that that's what was going on during the elections. This wasn't just services that, defense, institutes and that lot that came from America that acknowledged this was going on, but it was actually other countries that was actually acknowledging that this was going on. Because let's be absolutely honest here, and this is a true phrase, when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. So I am blaming you for Boris Johnson. Do you hear me? Yeah, it's like something Donald Trump shut out. And,
Oh god. Yeah, so I mean, and then some other things I guess that I appreciated was the fact that some of these ideas were good, right? So like, I like I'm fine with building a border wall. Democrats were fine with it too until fucking Trump suggested it. That's one of the biggest problems I think I saw with Democrats.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, Bill Clinton was going to build. I mean, it wasn't a wall like the one that we're putting. Actually, I think it is. As far as I've understood, that wall is a continuation of a lot of wall and fencing that was already in place. So there was actually already certain parts were already like walled off. Like, and I think that's something that's kind of funny that I like to bring up to like some like diehard Trumpers, and I'm trying to peel them off of it a little bit. Like, and I'm like, I think they only actually put up like 700 feet of wall, or I mean, 70 feet of wall, or something really.
Money was going into somebody
something
else's
really
pocket.
Small.
You know what I mean? We talked about where's the tax money going in that lot.
Yeah.
So many people funded that fucking website, and you didn't yield the result that you wanted. So clearly the money hasn't gone there, has it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we've got to just like face reality, because whether we like it or not, reality will just keep cruelly moving forward.
Yeah, and I think Biden said he's wanting to continue to build the wall. Like, there's a lot of things that they're leaving in place, or that they're basically rewriting or reforming some of these policies that were Trump policies, and that's what I was talking about. Like, so some of these policies were good. So like the wall, I don't really have an issue with the wall. I think it's fine. It's just like, and that's why I like to compare it to a mask. It's just like wearing a mask. Okay, this is not the cure for fucking illegal immigration by any means. I don't think anybody thinks that it's going to be the cure, but it is something that will help. Having a barrier there means that, just like we've already had places where they drilled a hole in the wall, right, and they cut like through the wall or the fence, whatever. Now we can see where they're coming through, right? So we can patrol those areas a little more heavily. You know what I'm saying? Or keep an eye on those places, and then we could kind of, you know what I mean? Just overall, it will help. It's not going to stop it, but you know.
Not to try and coach you a little bit, but when he came at you with that left-right hook combo that damn near flipping put you down for the count when you came out with that flipping.
I don't even remember what we were even talking.
I think the best response you could have given to him is go, yes, but both of them are preventative. They're not guaranteed. They're preventative measures. So a lot of people go on about masks don't work and that lot. Yeah, but as a chef, I mean, you've been a chef, yeah?
Yeah.
I am OCD about cleaning my hands. Yeah. I practice social distancing. So when I'm wearing a mask and I'm practicing social distancing and I'm washing my hands collectively, yeah, we'll see some results. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Drop any one of these things, and you're going to drop a massive percentage off its effectiveness. So no, these individual things don't work on their own, but collectively with other practices and other actions, they support and work with each other. And that's an argument that you could make for the wall. You know what I mean? Like you were trying with your analogies. So, you know, I can acknowledge that. And I've always enjoyed playing devil's advocate personally. So I do like exploring the opposite side of an argument, regardless of if I agree with it or not.
Right. So then there's that, and then there's like some of the America First stuff, like on its as an idea, I like, right? Like I like the idea of us winning out and you know, every negotiation that we can take on as a country. Like obviously you want us to win in it.
You know,
I mean, I'm an American. Of course I want to put them, of course, like, but so it was basically a lot of the ideas of the policies like that I liked. It's like, it's just the way they were executed that I felt like was shit. And I think a lot of people can even relate. You know, as much as they would hate to admit it, some of the people even on the left could probably agree to some of the things, but it's like you can't sign on to anything. Like, and I didn't like to see that from like Democrats. Whenever he wanted to put the bill on the table that was just for, you know, sending out stimulus to the people, and Democrats didn't want to. They were like, clean bill. We're gonna take all the extra shit out of here. We're just gonna send out stimulus checks, and Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats like didn't want to do it. Like, why? Like, come on. I get it. I get that we're close. I get that we're close to the election and you don't want to make Trump look bad, but holy shit, the people need it.
Sure, she eats small children to sustain her life force. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to kid around. I am anti-establishment. Mitch McConnell probably joins in with her. Like, look at the pair of them. They've been there. Like, if they sneeze, all that comes out is dust. You know what I mean? And here's the irony: is if you look at Mitch McConnell, you look at Nancy Pelosi, so what previously, like not earlier on, but probably mid during their career in the early 90s, mid 90s, they have a vastly different thing that they're saying to what they're saying today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have been there for too long, And when you're right about this. I think any human being can't sustain that level of power without being corrupted over time. And that's why we have term limits. And these are foresights, wise foresights that were established, like you said, by your forefathers. Is it forefathers? I'm sorry for getting that wrong.
Yeah, the founders. I don't know.
So I completely acknowledge that, and I'm so like. Here's another thing: AOC to me is Hillary Clinton 2.0, because if you look at Hillary Clinton, she was pushing for universal healthcare, right?
Yeah.
She was ruffling feathers, right? Now she's the most paid off by big pharma and other companies, right? Do you think she's the same person she was, so she is today? Of course not. AOC to me, I question her convictions. Yet Katie Porter, just because she's a little fat, I'm sorry if I'm going to get cancelled for saying that, and not so photogenic, she doesn't get anywhere near attention on CNN. Yet Katie Porter is cracking skulls regardless if you're left or right and you're part of flipping corporations.
I like that. I would much rather see that.
And that comes from, you can respect a person who does that. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a real key thing. We need a bridge of respect between each other. Our willingness to criticize ourselves shows acknowledgement to the opposite side of the aisle that you can trust us to be candid and to be genuine, so I think that's so important. I think we've lost certain aspects of that we need to get back.
So I would just like in summation, there are things that I like that I would like to remove and separate from Trump, keep some of these ideas and policies and maybe rework them or reword them or and make them the best version of that policy or that idea, and keep those in the Republican Party, but kind of put Trump, kind of kick him to the curb a little bit, because
maybe drop the fundamentalist evangelical thing. That might be
dude, Trump never went to church until he ran for president. Like, let's not kid ourselves, man.
To grab a Bible the minute he had a chance, though, didn't they?
And look, if he's really having a spiritual awakening, I'm not gonna shit on him for that, because different people come to God at different points in their life. Like, I still consider myself a Christian. I'm not like a fundamentalist by any regards, but so I don't want to hate on someone for like coming around to God, if that's the case. But it really just looks like,
or whatever's going on right now, I am anti-fundamentalist mindset. I'm not just anti-fundamentalist Christian. I'm anti-fundamentalist Muslim. I'm anti-fundamentalist left winger. I'm anti-fundamentalist right winger. I just don't like the mindset of fundamentalists.
Yeah. So if that's really the case, and he's coming around, then that's good. I think. But it really comes off that you just started, putting this spin on. I mean, he's called himself a Christian, I think, in other interviews, like earlier on in his life. But I'm pretty sure he said in interviews and in his own books or something like that he doesn't go to church and he doesn't really like do like religion and everything else, which is fine. But it's like, don't. He basically, when he went in, he was like anti. I'm gonna drain the swamp, whatever. When he came out, he was drenched in sewage, and he looked, talked, and walked and smelled just like all the other swamp monsters.
That's what happens when you go from zero to president, and didn't even Ronald Reagan have like a governor position or something at least?
Yeah,
wasn't that true? Like
and even Ronald Reagan has the same kind of track record. Ronald Reagan's presidency is so strikingly similar to Trump's. Reagan was just a lot better about his rhetoric. Reagan was a much better public speaker, and Reagan's policies weren't all shit. Like, but there has been this kind of like demagoguery, or this kind of like worship of Reagan and Reaganism and Reaganomics and all this stuff. Something that a lot of people don't understand is that when Reagan and Reagan's administration went into office to make a lot of these tax cuts, they had computers that they used to judge, how this was going to affect, and to calculate how this was going to affect the economy, et cetera, et cetera. They had used these computers for, I don't know, 10 years. I don't know how old the damn computers were, but they worked, right? They had been means tested. They had been tested before, and they had worked, and they generally gave you a good approximation of how some kind of tax cut or some kind of regulation or whatever, anything that has to do with like taxes could have an impact on the economy at large. So when they went to, they basically tested these tax cuts and the computer spits out the result, and the result is like, it looks bad. So then instead of accepting it and saying like, okay, we need to rework this policy, they reprogrammed the computers. Like, come on, man. Like, that's not someone looking for the solution, man.
That's just a flipping.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, and that's
you know
what I'm saying.
like,
That's not left or right. This is just like, come on, dude. And I think to be charitable to Reagan, this was his administration, but this was his administration. These were people that he chose to lead, these things, and the tax cuts were something that he championed. So, when it didn't work out well, then it was like, oh well, and then what made it worse was that whenever we were like, okay, well, the tax cuts didn't really work the way we thought they would. Oh well, that's because we didn't go far enough. We should have cut more. And I'm like, no, like, Jesus Christ, man, just let's think about this logically, man. Like, you have to have some sort of, and I had the same issue. I had the same issue with Trump's tax cuts, right? There's no sort of, and I don't know as much about the Reagan tax cuts, but I know enough about the Trump tax cuts to know that they were a failure largely. They needed some sort of benign revenue. They needed some sort of like consumption tax. They needed something to kind of make up. For the tax cuts to some degree. Like,
I've stubbed my toe and I've broken my toe, so you know what? I'll shoot myself in the foot to take my mind off it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like this. Like, it's not working, so we need to double down on it to make it work. It just doesn't. It's just completely illogical.
Yeah,
you know
and I won't go so far. I won't, and that's why I like to make those distinctions, because I'm like, look, I don't like Trump, and here are my reasons, but that's not for me to go to say like, you should vote for Biden, you should only vote for Democrats, and I want to see the Republican Party do better and repair itself, and I want to see someone take those policies and ideas that he did bring to the table and refine them.
Well, I always make the kind of.
I just don't think he's the guy that's going to be able to do it.
I make the doom pillar joke like, oh yay, we've got rid of Trump. Now we can quietly and politely go to our own self-destruction with Biden. You know what I mean? Like, it's just sort of like, it's the status quo again, isn't it? Like, honestly, we'll take Bernie. I will send you Boris, FedEx, I'll send you first class if you just send us Bernie. All right, I love Bernie being over here. But we're just still growing as human beings, as a society. I've always thought we've never fully evolved, as a society, if you get what I'm saying, as a species. You know what I mean? We're still trying to find our way in modern eras and stuff. So of course we're going to make mistakes in that one, but we can't allow ourselves to be shamed into not taking action. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can't, like, how do I put it? I'm British. Like, we're villains in every movie for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, we are fucking arseholes. Like, I started learning about my history objectively. I was like, fuck, we're like the bad guys in every wrestling, every wrestling match. Yeah. But like, like, you've got to acknowledge that and be honest about it, which is the point that I made about Churchill, like, incredibly racist towards Indians and all. You know what I mean, and stuff. Yeah. But still, human beings have the capacity to be immeasurably cruel and still be kind, because we're a paradox. You know what I mean? So this idea that we have to be fundamentally good or bad is just it's absurd to me. Does that make sense? Like, we're getting philosophical here, but we don't fit in that kind of binary spectrum. You know what I mean? We just don't as a society. So, like, you've got to take you take your wins where they are and be willing to acknowledge when you're at fault with certain things. Because if you can't acknowledge your own faults, then you're never really going to move on from anything as an individual. And then when you're trying to apply that to a society, well, it starts to get messy, doesn't it? Yeah. So I've always found that stuff quite hilarious. But then again, don't take me too much to heart, man. I'm an absolute disaster zone.
Well, we all are, though. Like,
like I've got, like, I'm like hardcore death penalty just out of personal experience.
Well, but that's okay though. Like, that's what bothers me. Like, dude, we should be taking the best pieces of this side and that side and trying to build like the best solution moving forward. We shouldn't be rigidly.
You're the first
absolutely
to swear yourselves to a set of principles rather than to swear yourselves to a monarch who, by the way, claimed that they were put there by God. You know what I mean? Like, people go on about the Magna Carta. I think I had was it Devil Dog through that bit? He seems to have forgotten about something called the Magna Carta, and I'm like, dude, I've not forgotten about it, but it never did anything. Monarchs never signed off on that. Don't take Robin Hood with Russell Crowe and think that's a thing. That never really happened that way. You know what I mean? So we've got to sort of look at the reality of situations and not get caught up in our own fantasies of our own perspectives. I'm sorry, am I going on a bit too much? You've got me talking a little bit now, Nacho.
Yeah, a little bit. No, I'm going on too much though, because I have to. I actually need to be getting off of here though. So
yeah,
I was trying to find a good place to pause and get off, but I was enjoying the conversation. So
yeah, no worries, man. It's been good talking to you. I hope I've ruffled enough feathers in chat.
yeah, I don't think you don't stream or anything like that, right? I don't know if you do Twitter. I don't know if you tweet at people. I don't know.
I can't wait to have a bit of banter with CTV, put it that way, if I can get on the go and that lot. But no, I'm quite happy that I managed to speak to you first, because you're one of my favourite streamers, man. And I've always respected your ability to be able to, like, you know, criticise yourself and both sides in that respect, and be willingness to take the heat from that. You know what I mean? It says a lot about a person. So I'll finish kissing your ass now, and we'll get off.
Well, you do a lot of pushing back on. That's why, like, I prefer to have a chat that's like not agreeing with me all the time. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that I have a lot of people in my chat that like argue with each other, because that to me is a good sign, because I feel like I'm reaching both sides. If people are in my chat arguing right versus left, etc., that means that people from the right and the left are in my audience, and I like that. I would prefer that, you know. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right, anyway, you have a good one. Are you not trying to find somebody that you were trying to talk to anyway? Some person called, I can't remember the name, Summit Mind or whatever. I can't remember. You were trying to
Mind Waves? Yeah, I'll probably try to have a conversation with him like in the next like couple days or week or something like that.
Yeah, no worries, man.
So,
all right,
he seemed pretty cool.
Take care.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for the chat.
I'll see you in a bit. Yeah.
All right, take care. Well, that was a nice conversation, man. That was pretty cool. All right, so yeah, I don't know. That was pretty cool, guys. I think that was a nice conversation. I've been wanting to try to talk to him for a while. Every time we try to have a conversation, our Discord just spazzes out. So, but he's from the UK and he's on the left. Yeah, not so bad. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had any real issues with you in chat. So I just appreciate the constructive criticism. I like when chat yells at me. So I like the fact that lefties like to come in here. I want them to feel like they can come in here and yell at me and try to change my mind on some of my positions. So mostly because of your accent, true. All right, so I'm going to try to get off of here because I need to go get some work done, and then I'm gonna try to possibly go meet the wife at her friend's barbecue. So we'll see. All right. Yeah, you're all amazing, wonderful, beautiful human beings. Keep on rocking in the free world. And have a good 4th of July. Shoot some fireworks, drink some beer, have some fun. All right.